This video is about how to become fat. It may not sound politically correct, but I remember as a boy, all our relatives, whenever they see us kids, they used to say, "Oh, you're looking so thin," meaning that, "Oh, you're not being fed enough, you're always looking like a destitute." So in Oriental society, being chubby and fat was all the rage. Nowadays, everyone wants to be slim. People spend thousands and thousands of pounds and dollars on going to the gym, special diets to get thin. In Bonsai, the reverse is true. We are all after thick, strong, fat trunks. And there are such a lot of videos being made, how to make fat trunks, how to get thick trunks. And in most cases, it's just about being patient. You look at this horse chestnut, look at that thick trunk. This has become thick because it was grown in the ground for a long time and then it became thick. I'm going to concentrate on these Taxus Baccata or English yew. We have hundreds of these. In fact, we plant some of them in our hedges and we make bonsai from them, and they all have big trunks. So although you may see a very bushy plant like this, look at it. If you stand back and take a big shot of the tree, can you see how bushy this is? When you see a plant like this, you must be thinking, "Oh, that'll make a beautiful bonsai. Lovely branches, and it seems to have so much potential." But for the bonsai person, you can disregard all this. The beauty is really here. But despite the bush being so thick, the trunk is barely thicker than my finger. So isn't it disappointing that you have such a big bush and the trunk is nothing? So this is where you've got to be literally very, very patient. Even this one, let's look. If you look at any of these, this is almost chest high. So many branches, but again, the trunk is scrawny. So I've got to let these grow for much longer. Wait till it gets really thick, produce a lot of branches to thicken the trunk, and then we cut it back. I will show you some more of these yews, if you follow me, the undergrowth. And I've pulled out a few more. Now these, believe it or not, we've been growing on the nursery for the last 10 or 15 years. So they've lost a lot of the thick foliage, but over a period of time, the trunks have become quite thick. So let me show you what we're going to do with these. Look at all these. These are quite different from the other ones I showed you. Look at the trunk here. It's at least 2 inches thick and the nebari will be quite good. So that has got potential. So let's look at all of them and you can see, although this again is about more than 4 foot, 1.2, 1.3 meter, and it's got a decent trunk. So all these are in the same category. It's a different vintage, and the trunks are thicker than the finger, which unlike the other ones were only finger thick. So what do we do with these? I've got one even thicker. This one is from even longer back. But these have been grown in pots. They've never been grown in the ground. So they've just been grown in pots to thicken the trunk. So these have thick trunks. So with yews are very forgiving because however hard you cut back, they will sprout from the base. So we've got to ask ourselves, do we want the tree so big, so thick, and with all these branches? And the answer usually is no. Once you've grown the trunk thick, you can cut everything else off and wait for new branches to develop. So all these branches you can very safely get rid of, and we start again. These little stubs can be used for making gins or whatever. You see how thick that trunk is. So the future of the tree lies here, and we will wait for these new branches to grow. So let me show you what I would do with this one. This is an absolute boon. I love this implement. We could carve the whole of the top off, but there's no point leaving those branches to grow. What I would do is this is the second stage of making a bonsai. We cut all that off and then wait patiently for new branches to come from there. Because it's this sort of branch that we want for developing the bonsai. So, another case in point, let's look at these. You mustn't let too many unwanted branches grow, because the unwanted branches are not going to be any use to you. What we want are thin branches that can be wired. These will probably be potential for gin for whoever wants to buy this tree. This is where people who are not in our business think we are mad. You take all the trouble to grow them for years and years and then chop everything off. It reminds me of when I used to be a keen cyclist. The first bicycle I ever owned was a tourist bike. And because I was very keen on cycle racing, the tourist bike was no good for cycle racing. So I stripped the bike completely, although it was a brand new bike. And from there, I replaced it with other parts. And I was told off by my mother, saying that, oh, you spend all that money to buy the bike and you strip it to nothing. This reminds me exactly the same thing. But those of you who are into bonsai can see the potential here. Lovely tapering trunk. And hopefully branches will grow from there again. So each and every one of these trees, we will do exactly the same thing. Let's get the weeds out. So this is where in bonsai you have to be a bit patient. I know that you can make instant bonsai, but there are situations where you really have to play the long game. People who are in other types of horticulture always laugh at us because in 6 months they can produce a saleable plant, but in bonsai it takes years and years. So again, I'm looking for the beautiful trunk. So if you home in on this one, and I'm surprised how beautiful the taper is on all these trees. Almost like a pyramid. Broad at the base, tapering to a point. And these would make beautiful formal upright trees. That means straight bolt upright with branches hanging down. In fact, I should cut the branches much cleaner to the trunk and wait for everything else to grow all over again. And with this tree, this looks like a potential new leader. So I could possibly take it off from here. Now if you bring the camera close, look at all these new shoots here. These are all going to be the future branches. You see how it's budding back? So that is what we're going to wait for. Wait for them to grow, and once they grow, then we can wire them. So this is all we do with these beautiful yews. As I say, shame that we take all the trouble to grow it and then we have to cut everything off. How stupid is that? But we have the last laugh. Those of us who are into bonsai will know that, you know, it's not as stupid as people think. This is how bonsai are made. Growing the trunk. I'm always amused when people say, oh, we can thicken the trunk in next to no time, but in most cases it is a matter of patience. There's no substitute to being patient. See all that, look at all that beautiful growth cut just because we want the trunk. That's what we are looking for. And when we get new branches, those are the ones that are going to be wired. So I'm going to go through all of these. All these trees are in the same situation. They've all got like 2-inch plus trunks. Look at this one. This is absolute beauty. Home in closely and see that one. It's got a twist and bend in it. I'm going to bring the secateurs to prune it a little bit. I always say that in bonsai, although you may think that you're producing clones of the same design, not every tree is exactly the same. They all turn out different. So this one I can already see has so much potential. See, the trunk is a bit bent and twisted. And that could be a very interesting tree for the future. Look at that. Look at the beautiful twisted trunk. The beauty of the yew is that however hard you cut back, they will sprout from the base. If you remember the ones we dug up from our hedge, they had like 5 to 12-inch diameter trunks. They're all budding back from the base. So already it's got a lovely twist to the trunk. So this will be an interesting tree. And I don't want to grow it too tall. The reason why we cut back is because if you don't cut back, it will not sprout. If I left this, all the goodness will continue to go to the top and nothing will sprout from the base. Whereas if we cut this off, then it will force new growth to happen here. So that's got a beautiful trunk. So all these are going to be dealt with in this way, cutting back and then seeing what happens. So let's look at this one last one. I've got about 50 of these to do. And hopefully by next year, they will have formed enough new branches for us to wire. Again, this reminds me of the days when I used to visit these commercial nurseries. And in many of these commercial nurseries, trees and shrubs are sold by height. You know, so many pounds or so many euros per centimeter. And I used to go around with my Felco secateurs and I used to prune the tops off. And they used to get very annoyed and angry with me. They said, please don't prune it because, you know, we sell it by the height. I said, I've paid you for the height. It's just that I want it more easily transportable. So I will follow this up and see in a few months what happens. I dare say that these will all be sprouting pretty soon. So look at all this. Look at it. Just cut back to stumps and that is the start of the bonsai. and all this been discarded. So that's another lesson for you, how to use the potential of the tree, i.e. the thick trunks, and grow new branches. So I hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this one.